Hey all there virtual rafters, thanks for clicking. How y'all doing? Hopefully you had some fun at Caravan Town and have started to find yourself sucked into the storyline of how the world ended up sunken. It's about time for Tangaroa now. Now, originally when I started editing a video for the final location of Chapter 2 Raft, it was just when Redbeat announced the drop for the final chapter patch. I put the brakes on it knowing that developers were planning on making changes to the story, and not only did the plot get altered, so did the location of some of the notes that allude to everything that's going on. So this guide is based on the most recent release post of June 2022, and in theory will remain indefinitely with the story of Raft coming to a close. We're on the lookout for 4 blueprints and 10 hidden notes within Tangaroa on this adventure. The site is broken up into 2 primary zones, the underwater maintenance area of the ship and the above-ground small city of opulence and luxury. On approach, circling the outside of this giant snow globe, you'll eventually find an access door in which you can swim into. You just let yourself in and make yourself at home on this dark and slightly creepy abandoned citadel on the sea. We recommend bringing along an oxygen tank, headlight, a handy weapon, and an axe if you want to chop down the banana trees, as well as you might want to pack along some snacks and water. This is a long trip. The immediate objective to moving through this zone is finding loose generator parts scattered around the cafeteria and storage rooms. There will be 3 needed to reactivate the power to some machinery that we're going to need to pass through to the secondary objective. Inside the cafeteria, you'll find your first note of the story on an open counter. Hint, the storage room adjoined to this cafeteria also has one of the easy-to-spot generator parts. Another of them is lying around the hallway around the corner. Although search of this crew area, we should snag them all. They're fairly visible, especially if you're sporting that headlight accessory. The last generator part is found near the cargo container puzzle itself. There is apparently little power for anything else, but the lit signs on the walls will still help one guide their way through the maze of Tangaroa's basement. Wind your way back to the generator room, and that'll be identifiable by all the shipping containers housed inside. If you hadn't already noticed, Trustworthy and I are equipped with heavy weaponry for this adventure. I've got a shotgun and a trusty 9mm pistol, while he opted for full automatic fire. This is possible through the use of the weapons mod available on raftmodding.com. If you're looking for a guide on how to turn Raft into a first-person shooter, because, I just so happen to have one, it's going to be linked up there in the corner and down in the description below if you think this might be fun for you. Once inside the control room for the crane, we can now shove these generator parts into their designated places to get this beast fired up. The console near the large windowed wall has controls to move the crane. With these buttons, we do one of those ancient puzzles where strategically shifting one piece at a time eventually creates a pattern desired. The goal here is to create a pathway from one side of the room to the exit blocked off on the other side. Note that there's caution tape pasted on top of the shipping containers. Those indicate which side of the container has an open side. Once you've set up a schematic to navigate out, climb back down out of the control room and make your way through the cargo container puzzle. Now, the room immediately after will contain the second note with story clues alongside the blueprints for crafting water pipes. Take the hallway out of this room towards the plantation for the next half of Tangaroa that takes place below the water level. We've already got 2 notes down and a blueprint, leaving 3 more notes to find before making our way to the above ground level. The path that you're forced into narrows, the hall leads to a ladder headed to the upper deck, but you quickly find the passage is blocked. In this moment, you'll want to hold your breath. When the flood of water is triggered from the floor above, swim back to the room with the tallest clearance, the container puzzle crane room. A direct route can be reached long before the water is a threat, but if you get lost in these side rooms, they'll offer a pocket of water to grab a breather. This is why we thought you might need the oxygen mask to give you a little more time to navigate this event. Once you're inside the crane cargo area, look for a broken ladder extending from the walk across from the operator control room. Scrambling up this will not only get you to safety, but on the path to the plantation. Immediately after passing into the plantation's first room, there should be a third note from this location sitting on the table to the left amongst the tools and some scrap. Once you've grabbed that or anything else that's useful, wander into the area that's flooded with water. Note that there's an electrical current running through the water that covers the floorway. Yes, it will hurt, but it's not a one-hit wonder, especially on normal mode. Several shocks are survivable before you'd black out and have to be revived. It's not too difficult to navigate around unscathed using a variety of planters, soil bags, and boxes to jump on. Inside the multiple rooms of the plantation are living, harvestable banana and strawberry plants to add to the variety of farmables on your raft. This is whatever is left down of this rundown ship's food supply. You can collect the 4th note towards the other side of the room. It's sitting on the edge of a box, and then look around for all the rolls of duct tape that you can find. We will be scavenging this entire place for more rolls of tape to fully repair the electrical boxes located all over this plantation area. For now, we only have to repair 1 to gain access to the main level of the floating city. Head into the second flooded room of the plantation, pan around looking for the 5th note for Tangaroa, and also an electrical box along the wall. The note will be propped up against some boxes sitting next to the doorway for the surface access. We've got to have at least 3 duct tape on hand to fix this malfunctioning equipment. You can check your duct tape count in the player journal along the left side. 12 are needed in total, and the first 3 will get 1 box working to open the surface level and power limited lighting. Once the first box is fixed, pass through the hallway from the exit and up the stairs to the city park, where the statue stands of a bit of an odd figure that perhaps has significance in the larger plot. Max Landshoff in his strange golden shade seems like a rather shady figure, but the sixth note is located at the base of his statue in the park tucked amongst some trash bags. This whole place is pretty trashed. It looks like things got ugly here by the end. It's a ghost township thing, whatever. Pretty much a massive snow globe of a ship, according to the notes, powered by some kind of nuclear engine. There's a repeated theme amongst the story locations that references nuclear engines that very well may have been mechanics on this craft. Or at least the engines got destroyed by the hordes of bugs that you may have seen crawling around the underwater portions of the quest. Other notes found through this location give some clues as to why this place is an absolute mess, but the task here is to explore this entire city, from top to bottom, by entering in all of these residential buildings. For that, you'll need keycards to open each building's door. Farming the roaming butler bots that are around the ground level zone will get you more than enough adequate cards to access them all. These little bots aren't too tough. They just like to bolt at you, but they can be fairly easily speared down. All the firepower that Trustworthy and I brought along on this mission really isn't necessary. We just wanted to test out the mod toys while I built up a custom battleground island for us to PvP on with a separate game save. But for now, we can forget about searching for notes or blueprints. This hunt is for duct tape. Each building has a number above it to keep track of all those that you've already visited. The numbers on the restaurant and retail spaces will come into play later. Use a keycard at any random door, pass through the lobby, and into the elevator for a short ride to one or more floors, depending upon the building's designs. The elements will look pretty much the same from residence to residence. Along the way, there will be golden tokens that are not only meant for vending machines at this location, but will also work in vending machines in future story locations, so it's worth looking on every counter, in every bathroom, and around every surface to find as many as possible if you're into decorative items for your raft. You might as well, because you're also here looking for that tape. Lots and lots of tape to fix the electrical. Even if the story notes indicate that there's a looming food shortage dire enough to threaten the population of the floating city, it seems like the alcohol wasn't in short supply. There's bottles everywhere scattered amongst the apartments and social spaces. It looks like a lot of partying was going on here, maybe a little too much. I mean, did you check out the courtyard park area? Trash everywhere? Overturned security cards? There was a literal riot. But it was over the conditions enacted by the ship's captain to lock up pets who supposedly keep them from being eaten by starving residents. What finally sent the tea kettle whistling was the order to open fire for an approaching pack of rafts, possibly even the people from Caravan Town. No more spoilers. If you're interested in the evolving storyline, I'll go through the notes and an analysis after we're done navigating the quest zones. The next objective is to take all of the tape that you've recovered from the apartments down to the plantation to finish repairs on the other electrical boxes. Locate that Max Landoff statue in the park, and head back down the stairs for this task. Carefully navigate the series of flooded rooms still electrified from the malfunction. You have several seconds between each pulse to jump to the next grounded object. You'll know you've been successful with repairing the final 3 boxes when the water loses its electrical charges and it's now safe to wait around in it without fear of taking damage. Simultaneously, the door to the elevator access will open, allowing you to pass through the room that contains the second blueprint available in this location. It's for the super handy electric purifier, so don't miss this glowing object sitting near the exit to the hallway. The elevator holds its own little fun secret. After entering and turning around to face the open elevator doors, look to the upper left corner above the door, and you'll see a faint appearance of a button built into the trim. This button will activate the elevator to get to subfloor 20 under the water level. The ride down will take a moment, but all that exists at the end of this ride is a very small room, densely cluttered with items surrounding a desk. On this desk sits a cassette tape which can be inserted into the game's radio to play elevator music from Tangaroa. This is part of a complete collection of extra jams by the sound artist, some of which are pretty neat. Most of them are hunted up by metal detector on large islands, but there's also musical selections at a trader hut that you can buy with a few recycled cubes. Hitting 0 on the elevator will return players back to sea level. If you haven't already checked out the gift shop on Tangaroa, I recommend doing that before exiting the island. Out the door of this elevator leads back to the streets around the city. There's still yet a larger elevator at the center of the globe to take us to the top for our final objective. But about these vending machines, not only do they contain useful items like food and water to stay alive while we're doing all this adventuring here, your character's stomach might be growling for a snack by now. There's also some decorative collector items to take home, notably the piano, potted plants, and paintings featured around the city. There's also an extra radio for those who haven't had a shipwreck island spawn yet or just want a few extras for their raft. Or you can save the tokens for future story endeavors. These locations also have a lot more coins, but it depends on what you're trying to get. It is possible to return to this location just to farm more coins, allowing players to complete the achievements for Steam. Once you're done visiting the vendor area, return to the building with the service elevator to the plantation. Now that was the door marked with the large red sign about the keycard being out of order, and it was originally locked off to us while exploring the apartments. Taking the elevator to the 8th floor leads to a large room full of party supplies for a birthday. Wind around the corner hallways, and eventually you'll exit to a bar outside with a patio. There's a staircase around the side with an open doorway on the left to yet another apartment. Pass through it and right into the bathroom where there will be a broken window to crawl out of. Leap up to the nearby boxes for a short jumping puzzle that eventually leads to a rooftop air conditioning unit, and affixed atop this is a zip line to your next location. Use the spacebar to jump off the zip line into a quick crouch to enter in through another broken window. But look out for furry menaces in your face within seconds, as this little section has a lurker or two. Even though this is for a speed run, Trustworthy and I are going to straight up to the top. Each one of these floors has a table that may contain extra tokens for vending machines if you're interested. The top floor has a large bar along the left wall and a broken window exit from the far wall of the stairway. Notice the zip line right outside? When you've cleared this restaurant banquet area for everything that you wanted, then zip right on over to the large tower running from the ground to the top of the globe in the center of town. There's nowhere to go but up from here. Up this giant blue ladder will eventually get us to a maintenance room at the top. Taking the elevator to floor 0 leads to a small maintenance room where you can snag note number 8 for your journal. Look around for the cassette tape on the edge of the stack of boxes near the elevator door. Hop a ride to the second floor of the elevator to the room containing the bridge controls. Inside this room, we find blueprints for a large locker-like storage unit, something to splurge some titanium on and can be quite a useful upgrade. There's also a note nearby. On it is scribbled pictures of objects indicating businesses around town. The address number plaques above each business is the digit matching the code to fire the bridge from its base. Hints come by way of giving us the street names for each business location. But if you're super lazy and you don't want to explore the city again for this information, it's the same for every player. I'll spoil the code down in the description for anyone who wants a shortcut. It's also going to come up on my recorded session here. Once you've got the code, by whatever method, input it into the control pad in the bridge room. This will set off an explosion that rumbles your screen and you can see a burst outside the opening. If you follow the trail of fire, you might be able to spot the approximate location of where the detachable bridge landed in the water below. Now, I don't necessarily recommend the option that Trustworthy and I took here. We just went sliding down the side of the snow globe for immediate access to the now floating bridge. One could totally exit the tower and return to their raft through one of the many convenient exit doors around the ground level. When activated, these emergency exits, much in the same way planes do, will inflate a large rubber raft-like ramp to exit the craft. Those are also provide easy ways to get back into the city without having to pass through the underwater portion. You can option to swim or raft your way over to the snow globe topper, or rather the bridge. It's actually a sizable ship all its own, and it's accessible by ladder that reaches down into the waterline. You scramble on up it and down into the awkward hatch. You'll drop down into an area filled with a bunch of mechanical controls and one living being, a rare sight in this game. It's a suit. It just doesn't seem like it would be comfortable rafting attire. This poor lady might have had some difficult time adjusting to the more rustic life on our raft. Trustworthy doesn't seem too pleased about having to take along this corporate stiff of a passenger. It's not exactly like this entrepreneurial advice she offers is going to be benefiting us much with life on the waves, but we are here to be good Samaritans. These NPC figures in story mode becomes characters in which we can shapeshift into using the player menu. But it would be neat if these eventually new characters and had a chapter 3 and all had their own storylines. But this is at least a new look for us. Beyond the rescue mission, look around near the entrance where you initially dropped in. There'll be a large controller table near it with a post-it note stuck to the screen. This is the 4-digit code that we'll need for the next story location of Varuna Island, and it will appear inside the player journal after retrieving this. Run around and grab the nearby blueprints for the water tank, and then loop around the bridge looking around at all the control units for the final paper note amongst all the buttons and toggle switches. And that's it! We've conquered the floating city and released the bridge to find the only remaining survivor of this wreck. Plus we have an automated water purification and other goodies. There is a portrait in this bridge of one Max Landshoff, and the same character of the statue inside the city park with the golden glasses and the quote below, "Savior of Earth's Finest, founder of the Tangaroa project." Excuse me, but bleh, gross. There's just a few things that sound like delusions of grandeur rich people stuff, like attributing their success to their individualism and superior decision making when socioeconomics really explains a lot more about income. But whatever, the rich are gonna flog this meritocracy myth for all it's worth. Savior? Question mark. Earth finest? Question mark? What? And can we talk about the billboard here for a second? What is this? VIP Why does this seem like it has to do with the plot? I really just want to know where they're going with this, but it's hard to know because changes made in Chapter 3 may have already altered the story from where it was originally going. Spoiler alert for anyone who wanted to uncover the notes in suspense. Thank you for stopping by the video, but you might want to click away now. For those who are staying past the intermission, and maybe for a few who have played through this before in its earlier state, there weren't that many changes to the note locations, and the contents of some notes remains the same. However, there were some added clarifications to who was on board and how they relate to earlier parts of the story. Our first clue of how Tangaroa ties to the rest of the story comes by way of a note from Ruben, a likely crew member who remarks on Ditto's presence and ability to assist in engineering. This note also contains information referring back to the situation on Caravan Island and the sickness spreading amongst the residents who escaped. But this note leaves us with questions about who was the bigger threat to the floating settlement. Was it the refugees seeking help, or the rats that were quickly taking over the bowels of the city's cafeteria and engine rooms? Almost all notes drop for us in this count up to the threats the adrift settlement was facing. Engine failure, an infested food supply, hostile rats the size of large dogs, robots with lasers, and invading rafters. If you'll remember the caravan tower in the previous story location, there was a small-scale attack diagram set up on the table of matchbox boats surrounding a dome. We may assume now that that was the plan to board Tangaroa, but really, could you blame them? This plot is pervasive with the same theme that rich people have been ruining the world for everyone else. Captain Tully himself says in the notes that Rafters have been non-hostile, but still chooses to shoot at them anyway, which further causes a riot amongst Tangaroa's residents. It seems that he even managed to burn out the engines on the ship in order to get away from them, which ended up proving to be rather self-destructive as the engines were already hanging on by a thread. Interesting how scared the wealthy are of the so-called underclass of society. In a transcribed tape recording, even the crew is hesitant to carry out Tully's orders of shooting to wound the Rafters. Not all of humanity was lost on Tangaroa. The working class and some of the ship were reluctant to hurt their fellow man. It was only the depraved leadership. I feel as if this story crafted into Raft is quite relevant to the world. In a time where wealth inequality and climate change are very real threats, the wealthy are indeed feeling the fear and retreating to their multi-million-dollar yachts, worrying about how they'll secure cooperative labor to continue living out their lifestyles. I'll reference back to a recently released book by Douglass Rushkoff, who attended a conference for rich tech bros, addressing apocalyptic scenarios. He aptly named the book Survival of the Richest, Escape Fantasies of Tech Billionaires. The Washington Post reviews it as a dark and revealing. Rushkoff provides a powerful critique of the attitudes and technologies that enable these deceptions. But let's take a moment to hear how little the tech bros have thought about how to survive in the end of the world, with an interview with Doug Rushkoff about his experience.
The story of which you write in the book, you open the book with this, of what I suspect was sort of the genesis of your idea to write this book, is pretty nuts. Will you just walk us through? I'm sure you've told the story 100 times, but it really is fascinating.
Well, it's funny. How about I tell you the real story? I don't tell the other people.
Yes, please.
So yeah, I get invited to do these talks for wealthy tech people all the time, and I kind of feel like I'm an intellectual dominatrix. You know, why would these libertarian dudes invite some kind of quasi-Marxist, anarcho-syndicalist, lefty, radical, psychedelic person to speak at their things? Usually it's to yell at them, right? What have you done to the internet? Why are you extracting value from all these communities? Why are you destroying the planet? You know, I give those kind of talks to these guys. And then I guess it's sort of like almost like a mini Burning Man adventure for them, right? They feel guilty for half an hour and then go back and do what they do anyway. So I was ready to do one of these talks, right? I'm flown out to the middle of the desert to this crazy resort where everybody has like their own hot tubs in their rooms. It was nuts. But, you know, it wasn't really a talk. It turns out it was this hedge fund that invited like its 100 most wealthy investors to this weekend. And what they do is they hire a bunch of like semi-celebrities, like a celebrity chef and like a golf pro and like a tantric sex healer. And then these guys have a menu of different events that they go to. Like, you want to improve your golf swing, you want to learn how to make a lemon meringue, you know, with this, famous food TV chef? Or do you want to spend an hour talking about the future of technology with Douglass Rushkoff? So 5 of these guys show up, right? I'm ready to go on a stage, right? To get mic'd up and go. And instead, these 5 dudes come into what turns out, I thought it was my green room, but it was the room, right? And they start asking me all these tech bro questions like, do we invest in, Bitcoin or Ethereum? What do you think's going to take over? Virtual reality or augmented reality? When is Web 3 going to be replaced by Web 4? And I'm so not the person to ask those things. Like, I know that video is going to be a thing, but I would vote on like Betamax, not VHS, right? Or CompuServe, not AOL, because these things were better, but better never wins. I should learn that. But finally, they got to their big question, which was like Alaska or New Zealand, and they wanted to know where is the best place to put their bunker for the coming event, whether it's climate change, electromagnetic pulse, economic unrest, whatever happens that forces them to live out their fantasies, really, right? And go to their secret bunker. And we spent this whole hour, with me really trying to undermine their basic premise that they could build a retreat and somehow defend it from the germs or from us, and I remember I was like, so who are you going to have guard this thing from us when we have no food? And we're like, oh, don't worry. We've got Navy SEALs, on one touch, on speed dial waiting, but fully gassed helicopters. So then I asked them, I said, well, how are you going to keep control of your Navy SEALs once your money is worthless, right? Your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, your dollars, your gold are not going to be worth anything in a post-apocalyptic bunker in the middle of nowhere. And it's like one of the guys is like opening his Moleskine book, like how to pay for the security guys after my money is worthless. Like they haven't thought this far. And and finally I started telling them, look, they were arguing for like shock collars or that they would be the only one to know the combination on the food. And I'm like, oh, Navy SEALs have no experience getting like combination locks from people. You're going to spend your apocalypse getting waterboarded by your own guys. So finally I was telling them, look, what if you're like really nice to them now? Like, what if you take your head of security and pay for his daughter's bat mitzvah today, or be nice to their families, because it's going to be harder for them to shoot you between the eyes if they know that you were nice to them then. And one of them finally asked me, and this was kind of the perfect thing. One of them asked me, well, yeah, but where does it stop? How many people do you have to be nice to prevent them coming after you? And it's like, well, try being nice to everybody.
Are you even surprised that shock collars came up as one of the solutions to coercing cooperation? There's an entire industry being marketed for the survival of billionaires, and yet we still have political figures pushing for the endless burning of fossil fuels and wasteful capitalism. Now, who knew? Being nice to people might actually be important to their survival. Now, I live right on the edge of Silicon Valley in one of the richest zip codes in America, tucked away in my tiny studio apartment, but walking amongst the tech behemoths daily when I'm out to get my groceries. I can attest that they don't know how to be nice, even when they try. There's actually a reason for that, recorded by MRI machines, in that rich people have been able to shield themselves from cooperation with other humans for so long that it's actually left them with reduced empathetic accuracy. And I'll link that study and Rushkoff's full interview in the description for anybody who's curious about that. I can't help but compare the note in which Captain Tully expresses that the engines powering Tangaroa were, in his words, purely built on theoretical basis that had barely been tested. And yeah, that sure reminds me of Silicon Valley's mantra of move fast, break things. I think that Raft is attempting to warn us of how technology isn't quite the savior that it's been sold to be. What crew is left ends up escaping by raft with the help of the Caravan Island residents. And in the end, humanity would be their only hope. Tully acknowledges that he's trapped in the cockpit with 24 idiots who used to run the world. And I wonder how he might feel if Elon Musk was one of them. If the villains of Raft aren't terrifying enough, the real world has tech bros. And I think it's what the devs hope that we consider as we enjoy the game. I hope that you're loving the game as much as I do. It's definitely in my top 3 favorites. I do a bunch of videos on how to add mods or building guides, so please check out the playlist if that interests you. And if you have any building suggestions, drop them in the comments below and I'll see if I can't craft something up. Once again, thanks for checking out the video. Take care, y'all, and bye-bye!